I never saw it coming. The day my wife, Emily, suggested she wanted a free pass was one of those moments that rattled me to my core. We had been together for 8 years, married for 5, and on the surface, everything seemed perfect. But as life often proves, nothing is ever as smooth as it appears. It started innocently enough. Over dinner one evening, after we had spent a long day at work, she brought it up in a surprisingly casual tone. "You know, I've been thinking," she said, a distant look in her eyes. "What if we took a break from the usual? Just for a little while, so I can explore some things outside our relationship." She paused, waiting for me to process the words. I remember feeling my fork freeze midair. "A break?" I asked, almost laughing in disbelief. "What do you mean by explore?" Emily bit her lip, then let out a sigh. "A free pass, I guess. To sleep with someone else. Just once. It doesn't mean I love you any less or that I'm unhappy with our marriage. I just think it would be freeing for me, and maybe even for you." The air thickened with tension. I couldn't process her words. What she was asking for felt like the ultimate betrayal, yet she seemed so calm, so confident in her request. She explained that it wasn't about dissatisfaction or wanting to leave me. It was about exploring a side of herself she felt she hadn't had the chance to. The more she spoke, the more I felt like I was losing her. I didn't know how to respond. On one hand, I loved her deeply, and the thought of losing her scared me. On the other, I had always been a fiercely loyal husband, and the very idea of her with someone else twisted something inside me I didn't want to confront. After what seemed like an eternity of silence, I finally spoke. "If this is what you want, then maybe we're not as compatible as I thought. If you really need this, maybe I should let you go." I couldn't mask the hurt in my voice, but I couldn't ignore what she was asking for either. Her face fell, and I saw the regret in her eyes. But she stood firm. "It's not about wanting to leave you," she whispered. "I just need this for myself. Can you understand that?" That night, I lay awake, feeling a mixture of disbelief, anger, and sadness. Was this the beginning of the end for us? Could I really allow her to do something like this, even for a one-time pass? My mind raced as I struggled to make sense of it all. The next morning, I did something I hadn't planned. I packed a small bag and left a note on the kitchen counter. The note was simple, but its meaning hit harder than any words I had ever spoken. "I gave you your free pass, Emily. But I think I need my own freedom now. I hope you find what you're looking for, but I can't stay here while you search for something outside of us. Farewell." When I left, I wasn't angry anymore. I was heartbroken, but I knew deep down that I couldn't continue in a marriage where trust had been shattered, even if she had asked for it. I needed to move on and reclaim my own life, my own happiness. I didn't hear from her for weeks. It felt like the longest time in my life. I found solace in spending time with friends and rediscovering passions I had long forgotten. But then one day, I got a message from her. "I don't think I need that free pass anymore," it read. "I think I needed to feel like I had control over something, but what I really need is to rebuild trust. Can we talk?" I didn't respond immediately. I had moved on, or at least I had tried to. I had found peace in walking away. Her request for a free pass was the beginning of her search for something she couldn't quite define, and it had ultimately led me to realize that I deserved more than to be a part of that journey. I never saw her again. It was a clean break. She found what she was looking for, and so did I. Only, I found it in the freedom of letting go. Months passed, and I threw myself into a new routine. It was as though a weight had been lifted. I focused on my career, rediscovered hobbies I hadn't enjoyed in years, and even started dating again. At first, it felt strange. Guilt gnawed at me in moments of quiet reflection, but I reminded myself that I was allowed to move on too. Emily had made her choice, and I had made mine. I didn't want to hold on to anger, but I couldn't pretend the pain didn't exist. Her request for a free pass had been a betrayal, and I had been naive enough to think I could weather it. In the months that followed, I slowly understood what I needed: closure, peace, and the freedom to find someone who truly valued me for who I was. Then one day, out of nowhere, I received a call from her. The sound of her voice on the other end felt like a strange echo from the past. "I know it's been a while, and I don't expect you to take me back, but I want you to know something," she said. I could hear the hesitation in her voice. She had always been the confident one in our relationship, and this version of her, vulnerable, uncertain, felt foreign. "I realized something," she continued. "The free pass wasn't about you, or even what I thought I wanted. It was about trying to fill a void that had been there for a long time. I thought I could find answers in the arms of someone else, but all it did was make everything worse. I hurt you. I hurt myself. And I've been sorry ever since." I paused, unsure of what to say. Part of me wanted to reach out, to console her, but another part, the part that had moved on, didn't know how to reconcile the woman she was now with the woman who had once asked for permission to betray me. "I've been doing a lot of reflecting too," I said finally. "And I've realized that I'm better off on my own, and I think you are too. We both need to grow separately. I can't go back to what we had, and you don't need my permission to do whatever it is you need to do anymore." The silence on the other end stretched long, but I could hear her nodding through the phone. "I get it," she whispered. "I've hurt you. I've hurt us. I wish I could take it all back." "You can't," I said softly. "But I think that's okay now. We've both learned, in our own ways. I just hope you find what you're looking for. And I hope I do, too." There was another long pause before she finally spoke. "Goodbye, then." "Goodbye, Emily." And with that, the conversation ended. It was the closure I didn't know I needed. In that moment, I realized that her asking for a free pass wasn't just a test for our marriage, it was a test for me. A test of how far I would go to hold onto something that was slipping through my fingers. I had learned that love, respect, and trust couldn't be conditional. As for her, I never heard from her again after that call. Maybe it was for the best. We had both moved on. She had found herself in a way that didn't require my involvement, and I had discovered that I was capable of far more than I ever gave myself credit for. In the end, it was an unexpected farewell, but one that set me free. The path ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in a long while, I felt ready to face it on my own terms. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself settling into this new version of my life. The pain of the past still lingered in quiet moments, but it wasn't overwhelming anymore. I focused on my own growth, mentally, emotionally, and even physically. I began exercising regularly, reconnecting with old friends, and even traveling a bit. Each day felt like a small victory, a reclaiming of the life I had put on hold for too long. Eventually, I started dating again. Nothing serious at first, just casual encounters, getting to know people who were open to creating something fresh without any baggage. The experiences were both exciting and enlightening. Each date, each conversation, showed me new possibilities, new ways to connect with someone without the shadows of my past weighing me down. I began to understand that there was no single right way to love or be loved. It was about finding compatibility, trust, and respect, things I'd once taken for granted. I even met someone new, a woman named Sarah. She was kind, grounded, and had a way of making everything feel simple and natural. We took things slow, not rushing into anything. It was refreshing. With her, I didn't have to worry about being haunted by the past. She listened to my stories and shared her own, and I realized that while I wasn't looking for a replacement for Emily, this new connection was a chance for me to experience something genuine again. It was around that time when I ran into Emily, unexpectedly. I hadn't planned for it. It was a late afternoon at a local cafe, where I was meeting Sarah for coffee. I looked up from my mug and saw her standing by the door, scanning the room. When our eyes met, I felt a strange mix of emotions: curiosity, discomfort, and a sense of closure that I hadn't realized I needed. "Hey," she said, her voice uncertain. She hadn't changed much, still the same Emily, but there was something different about her. Maybe it was the vulnerability, the rawness that was missing before. "Hey," I responded, standing up. Sarah, who had seen the interaction unfold, gave me a subtle nod of understanding. She knew I needed to handle this moment. Emily smiled weakly, her eyes flickering over to Sarah before returning to me. "I didn't expect to see you here, with someone else," she said, her voice tinged with guilt. I guess I just wanted to see how you were. I didn't feel the sting I once would have. In fact, I almost felt relief. I had moved on. I'm good, Emily, I said softly. Life's been different, but good. I'm in a better place now. She nodded, a small sigh escaping her lips. I've been doing a lot of thinking about everything. I can't undo what I did, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I hope you find everything you deserve. I felt a pang of compassion, but I also realized that my journey with her had ended. I've already forgiven you, Emily. But we're both better off moving forward, separately. There was a long pause, a moment of reflection between us. She nodded again, this time with a hint of acceptance in her eyes. I hope you're happy. I am, I replied, meaning it. And with that, she turned and walked out of the cafe, disappearing into the busy streets outside. I felt a strange calm settle over me, as though the final chapter had been written, not with bitterness or resentment, but with quiet understanding. Sarah and I continued our conversation, and though it was a little awkward for a few moments, the tension quickly dissolved. She understood. She had been patient, not rushing me to share every detail of my past, but supportive as I navigated this transition. As the evening wore on, I realized something important. Emily's request for a free pass had been a turning point in my life, but not in the way she had expected. It had forced me to face my fears, my insecurities, and ultimately, my worth. I had been willing to sacrifice too much for someone who wasn't ready to commit to the same level of respect and loyalty. But in the end, I found the strength to walk away, and that decision had led me to a healthier, more authentic version of myself. I didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, I wasn't afraid of it. I was ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that I had the power to shape my own path. And with Sarah by my side, who knew where it might lead. The unexpected farewell had been painful, but it had set me free. And now I was finally living my life on my own terms. The months that followed continued to unfold with an unexpected sense of peace. My life, once filled with the tension of an unresolved relationship, was now filled with possibility. Sarah and I grew closer, and while it wasn't love at first sight, it was genuine, comfortable, and without the weight of past baggage. We were both exploring our connection at our own pace, taking our time to understand each other without rushing to define things. It was a relationship grounded in honesty and mutual respect, something I hadn't fully appreciated until I'd experienced the opposite. Still, every now and then, something would trigger memories of Emily. Sometimes it was a song we used to play together, or the way a particular restaurant reminded me of the date nights we once had. But those moments, as painful as they were at first, had become less about the hurt and more about acceptance. I realized that our relationship wasn't a failure. It was simply a chapter of my life that had run its course. The love we shared had been real, but sometimes love isn't enough to overcome deeper issues. One evening, while Sarah and I were out walking through the city, she turned to me with a serious expression. "Are you happy with how everything turned out?" she asked. It wasn't an ordinary question, and I could sense the vulnerability in her voice. It made me pause, the weight of it sinking in. "I am," I replied. I wasn't sure if I'd ever get to this place, but I'm glad I did. I think I needed to go through everything I did to understand what I really want in life, and in love. She smiled, her hand slipping into mine. "Good. I'm glad we've found something that feels right. I know it's not always easy to move on from your past, but I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere unless you say so." Her words, though simple, meant the world to me. They spoke of commitment, but not in the same way Emily had once defined it. This wasn't about chains or expectations. It was about two people choosing each other without reservations, without the need to ask for anything outside of what was shared between them. And that's when I truly realized that the free pass Emily had asked for had, in a strange way, given me exactly what I needed to move forward. Her request, her betrayal, the aftermath. Those moments had forged a deeper understanding of who I was and what I deserved. It was as if, in letting me go, she had inadvertently set me free to become a stronger, more independent version of myself. As the year went on, my connection with Sarah deepened. We talked more openly about our pasts, our struggles, and the lessons we had learned. I was no longer afraid of confronting difficult emotions. I had learned that it was okay to face them and move through them. It didn't mean I was broken or flawed. It meant I was human. There were days when I would look back on the relationship with Emily and wonder if I could have done things differently. But then I reminded myself of the biggest lesson I had learned. Sometimes you have to let go of what isn't meant for you in order to make space for something better. One afternoon, a message from Emily came through unexpectedly. She had found someone else, a new relationship she seemed hopeful about, and she wanted to share the news with me. "I just wanted you to know," she wrote, "that I'm in a better place now. I've worked on myself, and I think I finally understand what I was looking for. I hope you're doing well, and that we both find what we need." I read the message with a sense of calm. There was no anger, no bitterness. Just a quiet acknowledgement that both of us had moved on, as we were meant to. I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure, a quiet peace that allowed me to leave that chapter behind without regret. "I'm glad you found peace, Emily," I responded. "I have too. I wish you nothing but the best." And with that, I closed the door on our past for good. The future, though uncertain, no longer held the fear it once did. I was no longer clinging to a relationship that wasn't right for me. Instead, I was embracing the present, with all its promise and potential. Sarah and I continued to grow together, not out of necessity, but because we wanted to. We were building something real, something strong. The free pass Emily had asked for had ultimately given me the gift of clarity, the ability to see what was truly important, and the courage to walk away from anything that didn't align with that vision. In the end, it wasn't just about a farewell to a relationship, it was about saying goodbye to the version of myself who had been afraid to let go. And in doing so, I had finally found the freedom to live authentically, to love without fear, and to trust that the right people and the right experiences would come when I was ready to embrace them.